We're back. You're listening to WUSB Stony Brook 90.1 FM. We're here with Jill Barber. Her new album is Homemaker, and you just heard the title track. What experience do you have, not as a mother, but as a homemaker?
Well, I have created, with a little bit of assistance from my husband, a home, a safe, a safe, happy, a secure environment um, for my children to thrive in. But of course, with the concept of homemaker, I'm not just talking about parents. I mean anybody who can create a space for people to be themselves, whether you're caring for your friends or your community or an aging parent or a neighbor. Like, I just think with this album, Homemaker, what I want to do is celebrate the work that goes unseen, the invisible work that you're not getting paid for, but that is deeply valuable, and meaningful and important and essential for society. So my work as a homemaker is, you know, I give a lot. I give a lot to my family, my friends, my parents, my community, and none of that's paid work or anything like that. But it's work, and I do it with like a glad heart and everything. But it's a lot of work. My mom was a homemaker in the traditional sense, where she stayed home and raised us and didn't like she wasn't didn't have a job outside the home where that she got paid for. Um, and I think even as a kid, I sort of thought of my dad as the one that worked and my mom was just at home. But my mom did all the heavy lifting, raising us two kids, me and my brother, and making a home. And when you're really good at it, it doesn't seem like a lot of work, but it really is a lot of work. And so I really want to celebrate and empower people that do the hard work of making a home, the homemakers out there. Not people like whether or not they go to a job and have an income. If they're even a homemaker on top of that, that's huge. So I'm trying to I'm kind of trying to take that term homemaker uh, back and reclaim it as a position of power and something to be uplifted and celebrated rather than diminished as just a homemaker.
So, as someone who travels around the world sharing their music, you know, um, how difficult is it to remain a homemaker in those times?
It's challenging. It is challenging, and I talk a lot about that tension between my domestic life and my professional life in a lot of the songs on this album, because both parts, uh, both aspects of my life are really me. They're really me, being me. Like, the full expression of myself is when I can have all these things. I can have my professional life, my life as an artist and a musician, and I can also be mom and wife and sister and friend and all the things. And but it is a lot. It's a lot to juggle, and you'll often hear people say, like, when they're trying to do all the things, they feel like they're kind of dropping balls and not doing anything that well. And I have had that experience many times. Um, but I'm not prepared to give up my professional or artistic life for my family, um, and of course, I would never give up my family for my work. So I have no choice but to do it all and just try to get through it like reasonably well. I don't have to nail anything. That's kind of what the title track Homemaker is about. Is like, hey, if you just made it through the day, you're good. You're good. And if you baked a banana bread, you're killing it, you know? Or if you wrote a song, you're killing it. But if today is a day where you just kind of get through the day and everybody's still safe and put to bed and fed and everything, you're like you're okay. That's okay.
So how it must be fascinating the way you and your mom relate to each other, with her being someone who stayed at home and you being someone who traveled the world.
Yeah, I think my mom, when I talk about parenting challenges, I think she's like, it is a bit harder because she said my only job was just really to take care of you kids. And she recognizes there are maybe more pressures on modern parents where often both parents are working, and there just seems to be more pressure now to do things a certain way. um, Back in the 80s when I was a kid, like, us kids would just free roam all the time. We didn't always need parent supervision. These days it feels like if you have kids you have to have them like be shuttling them from activity to activity. Like, it's just way more involved. There's a lot more. I don't know, there are bigger challenges. And then getting back to the social media discussion, like, I think there's a lot more anxiety and depression, that might be as a result of our world, our social media world, in kids and in teens and stuff. And there's just a lot. It's just a lot. Hey, life is a lot, right? It's a lot. And I'm just in earnest trying to talk about my life on this record in the hopes that someone else might relate to a thing or two on it.
Yeah, did you find yourself ever, struggling just to get through the day when you were, stuck at home in the pandemic and just having to home make and, not be so occupied with work?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, because music was kind of my escape oftentimes from my domestic life. And when my kids were home with me 24/7 and I was just with them and I wasn't able to have any time or space to myself, made me crazy and I felt suffocated. And yeah, like I there were days when I would just like scream into a pillow like at the top of my lungs just to like have a release. And I'm sure I'm not the only one out there. So yeah, of course, it's hard. This album was definitely born out of a frustrated period in my life, and part of that frustration was the pandemic. I know everybody was frustrated. I'm not unique in that sense, but like just as a frustrated artist and mom who was just like stuck at home with her kids, not being able to express myself, it was hard.
Well, um, thank you so much for coming on the show. I always like to end my interviews by having the guests pick a song. Two rules. Number one, it can't be a song you were involved in creating. And number two is I'm going to give you a prompt, and going back to social media and people curating their lives, I want you to pick a song from someone who does absolutely no curation and just lets it all hang out there in the song.
The song that's coming to my mind is one that was written by an artist that I really admire, but who's become a friend. An artist by the name Slow Leaves, and he has a song called "Sentimental Teardrops." That, well, it's a great song, but I think it's also a really vulnerable song, that he wrote, and I think that's why I love it so much.
All right. All right. Jill Barber, the new album is Homemaker. Thanks so much for coming on.
Trevor, thanks so much for the invitation to chat with you today, and I appreciate your really thoughtful questions. And cheers. Thanks for the support of the album.